Hello and welcome everyone to a wonderful, wonderful opportunity where we can experience the Word of God a chapter at a time. Hey, I'm Reverend Charles Nelson, and today we are going to be reading through Proverbs number 14. So just make sure you smash that hidden like button. Make sure you share with me or share with me your comments or share this video with someone else. And make sure you follow so that you can be aware of everything that does happen from this channel as we continue to move forward. On today, we are going to be reading through Proverbs 14, and as you can see, the time is later than normal. I normally be on between 2:30 to 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, but it's like about 5, almost 6 o'clock, and yeah, I gotta get ready to go work. I gotta go work, boss. I gotta go work, boss. And so we're going to go through, and we're going to move briefly and brilliantly through this chapter, and we're going to, or this proverb, I should say. We're going to be reading Proverbs 14, and we're going to be reading it according to the English Standard Version, also known as the ESV. Just a few things that I was just thinking about here as we go through and as we prepare to continue to embrace the things of Proverbs 14. We're going to see a couple of things that is taking place here. That this is continuing on the contrast between wisdom and folly. We're going to see also continuing the contrast between wickedness and righteousness. I was trying to combine both words there, but we'll see the difference in here in this contrast when dealing with righteousness and wickedness. And we're going to continue to see how things, the fear of the Lord, how the use of our words, and how hard works actually pays off. And so let us continue going through here as we're going to look through. And as I read, just look to be able to pick up on some of these key things, like how much caution and discernment and ethical behavior is demonstrated throughout this proverb. These are some instructions that a father is giving unto his son. And so these are some vital instructions that we ought to give. And so let's go through and let's check this out and see what the Word of God has to say. All right, Proverbs 14, we'll be reading in the ESV, and it is 35 verses, and it reads likewise. The wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down. Whoever walks in uprightness fears the Lord, but he who is devious in his ways despises them. By the mouth a fool comes by the mouth of a fool comes a rod for his back, but the lips of the wise will preserve them. Where there is no oxen, the manger is clean, but the abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. A faithful witness does not lie, but a false witness breathes out lies. A scoffer seeks wisdom in vain, but knowledge is easy for a man of understanding. Leave the presence of a fool, for there you do not meet words of knowledge. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his ways, but the folly of fools is deceiving. Fools mock at the guilt offering, but the upright enjoys acceptance. The heart knows its own bitterness, and no stranger shares its joy. The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the upright will flourish. There is a way that seems right to a man, but his end is the way to death. Even in laughter my heart may ache, and the end of joy may be grief. The backslider in heart will be filled with the fruit of his way, and a good man will be filled with the fruit of his ways. The simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thought to his steps. The one who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. A man of quick temper acts foolishly. A man of evil devices is hated. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. The evil bow down before God, and the wicked at the gates of the gates of the righteous. The poor is disliked even by his neighbor, but the rich has many friends. Whoever despises his neighbor is a sinner, but blessed is he who is generous to the poor. Do they not go astray who devise evil? Those who devise good those who devise good meet steadfast love and faithfulness. In a toil there is profit, but mere talks tend only to poverty. The crown of the wise is their wealth, but the folly of fools brings folly. A truthful witness saves lives, but one who breathes out lies is deceitful. In the fear of the Lord one has strong confidence, and his children will have a refuge. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. In a multitude of people is the glory of a king, but without people a prince is ruined. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bone rot. Whoever oppresses a man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. The wicked is overthrown through his evil doing, but the righteous find refuge in his death. Wisdom rests in the heart of a man of understanding, but makes itself known even in the midst of fools. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. A servant who deals wisely has the king's favor, but his wrath falls on the one who acts shamefully. That is our reading today from Proverbs 14. There is so much here, but like I said, we're not going to spend as much time on here today as we have in the past. We just want to make sure that we are going through this reading. As I had kind of alluded to earlier, we could look at this here, and we can see many of things when it comes down to examining this chapter of Proverbs. In Proverbs 15, it still contrasts the behavior and the outcome of the wise and the foolish. It emphasizes that wisdom leads to a stable and prosperous life, while folly results in destruction and in trouble. Righteousness and wickedness is also one of the contrasts. And in this proverb, it highlights that the righteous life and the consequences of the wicked. It also shows us and teaches us that righteousness has the ability to uplift a nation. But when there is sin, that it brings on a part of reproach to any people. It continues in this chapter here, in this proverb, to continue to discuss the impacts of words, and is encouraging to the righteous to use them wisely and avoid things that are deceitful and that will bring about harm by the words that we use. And we also see also in here the demonstrations of things talking about working hard, how it underscores how important it is to do diligence and have hard work, knowing that there is plenty that is awaiting us, while for those who are lazy, they will be in suffering and they will want. And so these are just some of the things that we see in Proverbs 14, also including the reality of the concept of fearing the Lord. And that teaches us that the fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, and turning away from that snare, turning one away from the snare of death. Let us go now and just look at one of the things that I thought about here. I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to utilize some resources that I've heard. You know, I've been constantly or continually talking about the guy, Rodney Nichols, who also has gone through the book of Proverbs throughout this month of January. He has been having other individuals on to help him out along in the journey, other pastors, other preachers, in which I will be one of them, hopefully here within these next 2 weeks as we get our schedules matched up and lined up. But a few days ago, he had even my pastor on there, that is Reverend Kenneth Allen, the pastor of Zion Baptist Church here in Omaha, Nebraska at 2215 Grant Street, where we are the church where everybody is somebody and Christ is all. But when he was on there, one of the things that he talked about was the way that wisdom was described. That it uses this personification, or in other words, it takes wisdom and describes it as if it was a person. We could see some of that stuff even when we think about the Lord. We talk about him having ears that hear us or eyes that sees us and things like that. So it's using literally human terms to describe something, in this particular matter, something that is unseen. And so when he talked about this here, I thought about a few things when I read even the first verse. It says, the wisest of women builds her house. I noticed that my pastor, he pulled out a few different things about this woman, this wisdom, this building of her house, that she was active, that she was productive, that she was useful with her time. And that the things, when I think about this thing building up, this edifying, when I begin to think about that, I realize that wisdom in itself, the wisest of women, builds her house. It is things that are edifying. In order for a woman to be wise enough to be able to build a house, it's going to have to take things into consideration and thinking and knowing what's good for a household and what is not, what is really going to add value to and what may destroy, and being able to have and know those different things. It says, but folly with her own hands tears it down. I began to think about and realize that even how do I want to put this? That the things that we do, even with our homes, even while we are in the secret places of our houses, that they are either building up or they are tearing down. And I just begin to want to, really consider that thought for today. If I was to be able to have one thing that I'm going to walk away with, and I want to challenge you with today, is to really reflect on the quality of how you are building your house, or what attributes or what things are you bringing to your house. Is these things that are building up your house to make a house a home, or are your hands tearing it down? Hold on, wait a minute, because your hands, that really, really speaks to the sense of, in the spiritual sense, how you using it, your strength. And so that lets me know or think about some different ways outside of like me literally using my hands to take the pieces of the roof off, or pieces of the siding off, or tearing off railings. But what does that look like in other realms and dimensions? How am I using my speech in my home and outside of my home? I think about this often, like whenever the Lord calls me home, what are my children, my grandchildren, what is my spouse going to be able to say? I listen to so many people give testimony about loved ones that have transitioned, about the things that they talk, the way that they talk, the things that they have done. And so I think about that. Like, what are some things that I can do to ensure that the language that I'm using in my home is building and not tearing down? But hold up, wait a minute. Because sometimes we could talk a good talk while we're at home, but then we'll get out in the public spaces and we'll have a whole different attitude. What are you saying, or what language and what things are you using outside of the home? Is those things building or tearing down? When you are around your friends and around those you love and care about, what is the testimony that they are hearing about the home that you are to be building? I know when I think about some of these different things, it lets me know and help me to realize that sometimes folks can just figuratively and literally ride by our homes, look at it, and know what's on the inside without ever stepping foot in it. Why? Because of the testimony that you have given. Those testimonies is not only utilized through our words, but it's about our actions and our attitude towards our home. And then not only about our actions and our attitude, but it is also about the word that just left my mind. So until that thought comes back to me, I do see a few people on that has been commenting. Sister Cecilia, good to be able to see you on. May God bless you as well. My good brother Butch Dixon, what's going on, bro? How you doing, man? How you holding on? Happy New Year, man. It's good to be able to see you on. But when I'm just ultimately, when I'm thinking about this one verse in Proverbs 14, like, it really caused me to pause, even in my reading, to consider, am I building or am I tearing down? And so that's the challenge I want to leave with you on today. Are you building or are you tearing down? And what are some ways, what are some things that you can use in 2025 that's going to continue to build your house? Well, before I do let you go, we have to take us a little vacation. Let's travel over into Matthew. And as we get to Matthew, we're going to look at something in particular in the Gospel of Matthew. When you look at Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7, it is called the Sermon on the Mount. Sister Nay said discipline. Yes, discipline is what you can use. Surely that's going to build up your house and not tear it down. It is so good to be able to see you on as well. And so look, we all packed up. We're gonna pull out of Matthew 14. Matthew 14. Proverbs 14. Things that we have been talking about. We want to see what Jesus had to say about a similar thing. In Matthew chapter 7, starting at verse 24. Here it is. If we're going to build a house and not tear it down, this is what Jesus says. Everyone then who hear these words of mine, pause for a second. That means I would suggest that we must be in a position to hear some particular words. Who is the words of mine? Who is this that is speaking? This is Jesus himself. He says, everyone who hears these words of mine, and hold up, wait a minute, we need to do something more than just hear. Everyone, that includes even you. Anybody that hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. Look at that here. He said, will be like. And so hearing the words of God and then putting them into practice is a sure way of how we can build our house. He said that, look, hearing those words and building and doing them is just like a wise man who builds his house on the rocks. And what we have from God, if we build on that, it is a sure foundation. All right, that's it. That's all I want to be a pull from there. And I know there's so much more that could be said in that, but we don't have, while we're on this vacation, we ain't got to pull all these different things out. But there is just that one thing that Jesus compares his teachings to a wise man who builds on the rock. And not his teaching, but the one who hears his words and obeys them, puts them into practice. He compares them to one that builds a house. And so as we think about the words that it was in Proverbs, that kind of reminded me of what was just said in Proverbs 14, that the wisest of women builds her house. She knows the material that it takes. She knows what the energy, the time that, as Nage has said, the discipline that had to be in place to truly build her house. While the folly uses her own hands to tear it down. What are you doing with your house in this year? That's the question I have before you. And I pray that you find some ways that's going to build your house and not tear it down. Now, may God bless you and may God keep you. That's my humble prayer.